Hey everyone, welcome back. This one is going to be a pretty short video because I'm just going to be going over the diversity activity and how to complete that and the parameters around that. Obviously, this is also all available on Canvas, but I just wanted to make a video recording, just really going over like a few detailed things that might get confusing in the way it's written. So starting off, we're going to go over the assignment components, the instructions, and the paper instructions. So going over part 1 and 2 as part of the form activity, it says no points, but you must participate in order to write the paper, which is true. You do have to participate. Otherwise, it's kind of an automatic 0. Otherwise, how are you going to write a paper on a situation and conversation that you weren't a part of? So please, 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 please make sure to complete that form. It says no points, but it is worth 10 points, but it goes into participation instead of the paper itself will be worth 30 points. So what is your identity and positionality? These are in the textbook. I didn't really go over them in chapter 6 because I wanted to spend more time here talking about them. So identity and self-concept refer to subjective descriptions on who you are. And so this is going to be more kind of how you see yourself. These are going to be aspects of yourself, more of an internal process, kind of breaking down those identities. Avowed identities is basically how you portray and represent yourself to others. So this is how you define yourself in relation to others and to others. And then ascribed identity, this is how others define you. And this can be based on an identity. This can be based on just a perception that someone may have, but they explain this in the book because going back to positionality, which is a combination of every single aspect of your identity, it is different than each of those identity features before, because positionality is a cohesive and combined comprehensive understanding of your identities that you ascribe to. So the form specifically asks for you to recall an incident when an individual made a hurtful or upsetting assumption about your cultural identity. And I kind of wrote this in the forums to try and keep this about actual identities. I have had a lot of students write, because I'm blonde, someone thought I was dumb. And while that is a hurtful assumption, I really want to tackle the issue regarding actual identity, because no one identifies as a blonde person. No one experiences oppression and discrimination because they are blonde. Yes, there may be hurtful stereotypes that actually do play into how people experience things, but I would more so argue that often it has to do with a lot of other identities. And it's so, for example, the stereotype that blonde women are stupid is not because they're blonde, but is actually, I would argue, more intergrained in misogynistic aspects, and assuming that women who take care of themselves, women who dye their hair, are not as educated as women who don't. And that is a stereotype made in terms of men. So I would strongly recommend focusing and making sure that this is something that is close to your identity, or even a presumed identity that maybe you don't have but was given to you by someone else. That's okay, but I would highly recommend avoiding comments such as like, I'm white, but I've still had to struggle too, or I'm conservative, but I don't support Trump. These statements don't encompass the necessarily purpose of the activity. And I know sometimes for some students it is a bit harder to kind of recognize and point instances out in their life. And I understand the feeling of if you don't relate to anything I said before, just being like, I've had a lot of privilege that has shielded me from some of these instances. And what I have found that is really useful for students is even thinking of situations that maybe haven't happened to them directly. For example, a student in my class before has talked about how her adopted brother from China, how her and her family are always seen as caretakers for her brother because he is blind and Asian. And so, and she was white. And so, therefore, people would come up and make these assumptions that she is her brother's caretaker and that she's a nurse, all because of the idea that they cannot be family. Based on the physical perceptions of how they look. And so I hope this kind of under, helps you guys understand how exactly I'm trying to get the assignment to work for you guys, because I don't want this to just be a moment of specifically like white fragility. If you haven't really read too much about that, it just kind of talks about the sensitivities that white people have when discussing whiteness. And so I would really, really, really recommend if you're having a hard time, please reach out to me over email. Maybe a bit more complicated, but we can schedule a Zoom time because I really want this assignment to be something that all of you can take away in learning how your identity impacts your experiences um, and how other people's identities impact their experiences. And if you're still having like a lot of troubles, you can talk about just something that kind of happened, but I would also make it very reflective in being like, yes, this bad thing happened, but because of my privileges elsewhere, it wasn't as bad as an experience as it could have been or should have been, etc. Like I said, I can help a bit more depending on, you know, depending on the situation and how it works for each person in the class. On a case-by-case basis to help you guys make these statements. And at the end, I will share mine so that way you guys kind of have something to model after. And so the second option, sorry that the first part was a bit complicated. I know it's kind of hard to, take time to slow down and be reflexive about these things when, while I can't speak for other academic institutions, I know going through public school, like we never talked about identity and we never talked about positionality and we never talked about how these things alter our experiences and how we need to be cognizant and be aware of the way we speak towards people. But then you will create a placard that embraces or rejects these ascribed identities. You should share these aloud through a video that you will share in the Lesson 3 forum. You do not have to make a video. I like watching you guys' videos and it helps me kind of get to know what you look like, how you sound, just because, even more so now that we're like fully online and, I feel like a lot of you all know a lot about me and I don't know a lot about you. So a video is preferred, but I also understand some people have anxieties with that. Some people just don't feel comfortable recording themselves. And so I will accept typed submissions. But these are some of the examples of the placards. So this one is about religion. So I love Jesus, not arrogantly judging others. And that kind of comes with the assumption sometimes that people who endorse certain religions, maybe a bit more critical of other people. I like guy things too, so that might have been, I want to say it was a queer man who was feminized by his colleagues or friends into assuming more feminine roles because of his sexual identity. I may be big, but I don't want to shrink myself, and that has to do with like physical issues. And I do speak English, and it is my first language. So these are all just kind of assumptions that have impacted individuals and how they talked about it. So for example, my placard, I don't know if you guys could tell, I am a gay woman. I doesn't always transfer through, so I kind of receive a lot of, I don't think they're hurtful anymore. It's just to the point where it's annoying of, well, if you're gay, why do you look like a straight woman when gender presentation and sexual identity are completely uncorrelated? So I have specifically, I remember a conversation with one of my friend's friend. They're no longer friends, at least, thankfully, but I was talking to this guy and he told me that we could line up 10 different guys and 9 of them would say you're straight. And I was so shocked because, first of all, I do not base my life off of male validation personally. And second, how are 10 random people going to tell me what my sexual orientation is going to be? And I think that's going to be something that always kind of stays in my head. It's very funny now thinking about it, like that people sometimes really think like that. But the purpose of this activity is to understand and recognize how those hurtful assumptions happen and how we can kind of be more considerate. So after you participate in the forums, you're going to write an introductory paragraph that captures the reader's attention, includes a complete thesis statement. The body will include a clear description of your positionality, a discussion of similarities and differences between your experiences and other experiences based on your identities, a discussion of the consequences of not adapting your communications, a thoughtful discussion of the impact of this assignment on future choices and actions, and a discussion of specific strategies for developing knowledge, motivation, and skill to adapt to others. And then you'll end with a concluding paragraph that pulls everything together. So I know it says like in the body and in the introduction, obviously you do want to follow like general writing schematics in terms of, you know, how a paper should go and how it flows. But I don't, if you want to kind of like adjust the information to go in certain places, if you feel it will fit better, say, for example, if you want to put the last 2 points into the conclusion and say, for example, the first point into your introduction, that is perfectly okay. I want you guys to be able to be more creative with this and not be like, oh, well, it says in the body you have to do it here. So I would really, you know, recommend taking some creative liberties. As long as the information is there, that is perfectly okay. There is also a rubric in the guidebook on page, it's going to be around page 41, 42. It's going to be shortly after it, and it'll have it'll literally have the point breakdown of how I grade the assignment. And so this is going to be a bit more confusing, so make sure to keep note of this because this is what most students have the hardest time with. So as you respond throughout your paper, you're going to include 3 multicultural terms in chapter 6. And so I included the different types of experiences, and I go over these more in depth in chapter 6 if you need more help understanding what they are. But you're going to be including at least 3 of these in your discussion. And then, if you guys remember, it was talking about developing skills. And so you're going to have to suggest 3 skills to develop intercultural communication, and that can be listening, asking questions, mindfulness, other orientated communication. There's a ton in the textbook, and I sometimes even like and encourage when you guys kind of create your own ideas and how to be more aware and developing intercultural communication. So that's why I kind of put etc. right here. But one thing, please, to make grading easy for me, because I have 60 students, please bold these terms when you use them. You don't have to bold them repeatedly throughout, but when you bring up the term to start discussing it, please, please, please bold it, please. It makes my life so much easier when I'm grading, so I don't have to dig around and go back and make sure that something was written. You know, the sooner I find it, the sooner I can get through grading, and the sooner all of you get your grades back. Cool. And so I hope that was enough clarification for everyone. If you need more help or more assistance regarding anything, please, please, please reach out to me. The sooner the better. You know, I've been trying to have more of a work-life balance and not be constantly on my phone all the time. So yes, the sooner the better. Another thing is that I want to say it's Slack. Slack is doing 100% online paper reviews. So that way you can make sure, because grammar will be a part of the rubric, and that way the writing lab can help you guys in ensuring that your paper flows like a paper. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next one. Hey guys, another quick note, I guess, is that I will be uploading an APA template for you guys to write your paper on. And so I would highly, highly, highly recommend using that, just because I'm sure a lot of you guys are newer to APA, and having just a blank template to use, I think would be a lot more helpful than trying to figure it out and making sure it works. So please make sure to check that out on the on Canvas. And that's it. Bye. Oof.